Well, folks, here we again for the weekly forecast. And during this last week, first we dealt with the upper air low moving out of Texas slowly toward the northeast that we talked about last week, and that did bring the precipitation into the state, at least into south central southeast Nebraska as we got into late Sunday, and that carried over into Monday. We actually had some decent precipitation across portions of south central and southeast Nebraska, lesser amounts as you got toward the I-80 corridor and north of there, but we did have a few isolated reports of 2 to 3 inch totals, but real close to those same totals where we had the heavier precipitation, 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So the nature of the thunderstorm activity very scattered in terms of precipitation being widespread. Then we had the secondary low pressure system that moved across the South Dakota-Nebraska border on Wednesday, developed some thunderstorm activity right along that border, but we also seen a secondary pocket develop just in the North Platte area, and that led to some pretty significant hail damage basically to the north and northeast of North Platte. Unfortunately, hail was in the 1 to 3 inch range that was reported from the Storm Spotter Network. Now, before we get to the main forecast, the latest long lead outlooks were put out by the Climate Prediction Center for September and the 3-month forecast. So if we go to those right now, before we get to the forecast, what we will see on the temperature portion of the equation is they're showing EC across a big substantial portion of the eastern United States with above normal temperatures to the west and into the northeastern United States. In terms of precipitation, above normal moisture again in the southwest, indicating a robust monsoon season is still expected to continue through the month of September, and above normal moisture along the eastern seaboard. In terms of 90-day forecast, a much more widespread area of above normal temperatures across the entirety of the Corn Belt, and this is not uncommon during El Nino type conditions. And in terms of precipitation, once again, that monsoon flow continues, and also probably incorporating some of the Baja Peninsula hurricanes that usually form in El Nino conditions and move up the Baja Peninsula into the southwest. So in terms of the immediate forecast, we have this upper air low pressure system going to start to develop to our west in this northwest flow. As it slides toward the east, it will increase our precipitation chances as the weekend goes. But for today, we have low pressure that's going to start to develop in western Nebraska, but there's just not a lot of moisture return yet to feed into this system. So most of the precipitation will be right along the front range of the Rocky Mountains and into extreme western Nebraska. By tomorrow, this trough starts to intensify, and that will allow a little bit moisture feed to the north, high pressure moving into the backside of it. So we'll have a confluence zone just ahead of this high pressure system along the front to generate thunderstorm activity, with the heaviest indicated for eastern South Dakota. Now, as we get into the day on Monday, this trough passes to the east of us. We get this cold northerly flow on the backside of it, so temperatures are going to drop to well below normal. Low pressure slides off at the surface into the Kentucky-Tennessee area, and therefore most of the heavy precipitation will move to the east. It is showing a little bit of it here on the GFS, but most of the other models keep that well to our east. Now, as we get into Tuesday, that trough strengthens a little bit over the eastern Corn Belt. It's going to allow a little bit colder air to push down with surface high pressure in place. It's going to feel a little bit fall-like as the heavy precipitation moves to our east, and our temperatures will be primarily in the upper 70s north to the low to mid 80s south. As we get into the day on Wednesday, we start to see the ridge from the west building into our region. That means temperatures are going to start increasing in the western part of the state, and we'll start to see a slow warm-up in the east as high pressure slowly slides to the east and brings a southerly flow to us, a little bit of monsoon moisture to the west, but overall dry conditions. As we get into the day on Thursday, now the ridge pretty much engulfs the entire state outside extreme northeastern Nebraska. Low pressure systems are indicated at the surface, but there really is no moisture feed that's going to get up into these systems, so we're looking at a fairly dry forecast, and temperatures that will return to the mid to upper 80s to the north and the mid 80s to the low 90s across the south. And as of Friday, that ridge even builds farther to the east, so temperatures will be in the upper 80s to the mid 90s statewide. In terms of the temperature forecast, below normal temperatures as the front comes in late in the weekend, and in terms of precipitation, most of the heavy precipitation lays to the southeast of us.